to the Harbor.Church podcast.
It's so good to be back.
Yeah, we are rejoined. This is your third time, technically.
It is.
I think our most repeat customer.
Wow, really?
What an honor.
The other time I was like with Josh, though. So
Yeah, it
that's
didn't
like
really count.
2.5.
Yeah, so you're tied then. But
Wow.
the co-founder of Harbor.Church,
Technically, that's what they keep telling
Kaleigh
me.
Adams, that's what I like to call you. It's my favorite
Good
of
stuff.
your monikers.
It's very Silicon Valley. Just
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a casual co-founder,
Yeah.
NBD.
everything's normal.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to dig into the message a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one.
You guys just were like, hey, let's throw Kaleigh to the wolves.
Yeah, that's good for you.
It's fine.
I like to keep you challenged. If you missed the message, go listen to that first. But we are in the Mind Games series still. Our contestants were faced with a game where they had a scale in front of them
Yeah.
and many random objects, and they had to get the scale to say the exact weight that we listed. I believe it was 4 pounds and 12.2 ounces, if I remember correctly. But what the message ended up being about was the idea of giving, which is a tough one
Sure is.
for all of us.
Yeah.
In many ways, especially in a church setting. No one wants to hear about it. And
No.
yet we all very badly need to hear about it.
Yeah.
So for real, listen to the message first. But we're gonna
Yes, do it.
we're gonna get into it a little bit. My kind of favorite piece of the game portion of this, the kind of visual side of it, that I think we all fall prey to is they've got this scale and they've got to get this exact, perfect weight figured out.
Yeah.
And for them and for so many of us, it becomes like a math problem, right? And I think that's often how we see our giving is like, if I can just make sure I've got enough to pay my bills and I've got enough to do this
Yeah.
thing, maybe go out to eat every now and then I can give some to God and then everything will be perfect and I'll
Yeah.
hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
But that's not really what's laid out biblically,
No.
which is tough. So to kick us off, do you want to just walk us through personally kind of some of your journey with giving? Like what's that
Yeah.
looked like in your life over the years?
I would love to. It's fun because of this message. I've over the course of the last couple of days had this conversation with a couple of different people, and I think maybe what people don't realize is like Josh and I didn't always do this well. Like, and I won't really speak for him. He was always better at it than I was, but. There was definitely a long time where I definitely didn't have the right heart about it. And so in a weird way, as challenging and as awkward as this conversation is, it's one of my favorites to talk about. And it's one of the ones that I'm the least sort of self-conscious about because I've seen truly like what God's done in my life and how like my attitude towards money has changed and my attitude towards giving has changed. And so there really is a big part of me that's like to not have this conversation is to like rob people
Yeah, it's hurting you.
of the journey that, I've kind of gotten to go on. So, I grew up like with the idea, being taught the idea of like tithing and giving 10%. And I tended to think in terms of like, okay, yeah, that's what you are supposed to do. And like, sometimes the money's there and sometimes it's not. And like sometimes God will get you next week. And like, sometimes like, I'm good for it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it very much was transactional. And I treated it like a bill that was due.
Yeah.
And like all bills that are due, sometimes I just like didn't pay that bill.
Happens.
And fortunately, like there's no like Jesus collection agency
knocking down your door.
I've been made aware of. So
Yeah. They haven't found me yet.
no.
So.
But my heart really shifted in the early days of Harbor. So, Josh and I and the group of us that kind of started out, we now have this like little baby church. And so we're like, okay, this is the thing that we're giving to. And I remember specifically there was one instance, and I kind of always tell this story as like the last time I worried about money. So I was sitting down and I logistically handle the finances like for our family. So that's kind of that's my role and responsibility. So I'm sitting down and I'm mapping everything out. And I look and money's super tight and it's Friday and our electric bill is due. But also like money comes in on Friday and like we give on Friday. Like, that's when we kind of would send out anything that we're giving to the church.
Yeah.
And I remember because it was so flippant in my head, I was kind of looking through it and without even really stopping or pausing, I was like, oh, well, obviously obviously I need to pay my electric bill, and like I'll figure out that other piece of it. Like the money exists. It's just like, oh, it'll be next week or whatever.
I'll
Like
put it
that's
off.
not a big deal. And it was just automatic, and I kind of kept going, and I really felt the Holy Spirit like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
Like you didn't even stop to ask.
Yeah.
Like you just blew past that, and you actually said like, oh, well, obviously this is what God wants me to do.
It was an assumption.
Like, and that's how I operated, was like, I'm operating in the math problem. And obviously that's what God wants from me.
It's what makes sense.
So it was the first time that I really stopped and was like, okay, God, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Obviously you want me to pay my electric bill.
Right.
Like, I think that's pretty clearly what you want me to do.
Yeah.
And in that moment, for me specifically, and I'm not telling you not to pay your electric bill. Don't tell anyone that I told you to do that. But for me in that moment between me and God, it was kind of a moment. And I really felt the Holy Spirit like, no, like write the check that you and Josh have committed to, write to the church and like chill out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And that night, so I did, and I was like, I don't like this at all.
Stressful.
This doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And that night we were going to dinner with a couple from the church who I won't embarrass, but they know who they are. And we were having dinner with them, and at the end of dinner, and it was so random, but they were just like, hey, this is super weird, but we really just couldn't get it out of our head, and we really just felt led, like we wanted to give you something. And they gave us a card, and it had our electric bill in it, effectively. I mean, it had, some money in it, and and so we paid that bill on time. All of that long and rambling story to say that was a real turning point in my heart of realizing like, oh, I thought that I was managing like, a spreadsheet with all the money and like figuring out how to make sure to get God what he's due, instead of this whole thing is a gift from God. Yeah. And with his help, he's going to help me steward this in order to like take care of my family, but also be generous in the way that he's called me to be. Yeah. And when I start from a place of generosity, it changes my entire framework about how I think. And that really over time kind of got Josh and I to a place where I would say truly in our hearts, like, I just don't look at money the same way anymore. I really do fundamentally see the whole thing as like, this doesn't belong to us. Right. Like, we're holding the bag, but but it's,
it's not ours.
It's not really ours. We get to keep some of it to do fun stuff, and a lot of it we don't, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's the root of it, is the question of ownership, right? Yeah. Like, how do you see, and it's not just money. I think money is the hardest one for
absolutely
all of us, probably especially in America, just the way our culture is shaped. But it's a question of, do all these things, time, talent, treasure, testimony, do they belong to me? Or are they things that I am stewarding, managing, that have been given to me? Because it does completely change the way that you treat. Like, if I borrow your car, I'm going to treat it differently than I treat my own car. Your car, actually, I'd probably treat the same, because I know how you treat
We're
it.
friends, and we know.
But like someone I really care about, their car.
Someone who like takes care of their stuff.
Yeah, someone I respect. Just kidding, everyone. We love each other. So much. But truly, like, that, to me, that is the same thing. If I'm staying in a friend's home, if they like let me borrow their house for a week, there would not be a droplet of condensation left behind from a glass of water that I had.
And if they called you and were like, hey, my great aunt is stopping by, she needs to stay in the guest bedroom of the house that I'm letting you have for the week, you'd be like,
it's not mine
obviously.
Anyway.
Like, I don't, right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's actually a good illustration that we just stumbled on there.
We
I never
did.
thought about that before. Yeah. But yeah, it is. It's just an idea of like, if this is actually God's,
right,
I don't need to be close-fisted about it, and I don't need to be scared about it.
Right. And I think that's a fundamentally different picture, right, than saying, okay, hey, I've got this, pile of money, or this little pile of money, and it's all mine, and God wants some of it. So what's the exact, how, like, okay, 10%, 9.5% of the net on the gross on days that I don't have taxes or whatever. Like, okay, God, that's what part you command, rather than saying, this is all God's, and in recognition of that, I'm going to just always take off the top of that and not even touch it and consider it mine, because none of it is. Right. But
at least I can do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. So how do you, to get a little practical with it, because I mean, I hope the listeners understood when you said, like, that was the last time I worried about money. Does not mean that you have been filthy rich ever since.
No.
Then. You know, like, that's not how it's worked. I mean,
and that's the day that I won the lottery.
And that's when it's just been perfect and golden ever since.
Yeah.
But there are realities of life, right? Like, your electric bill was and remains to be real. And, like, you have children that you want to feed and clothe and, like, put in sports. You know, like, there's realities. Some of those things are luxuries. Some of them are necessities. They're all part of life. Where do you think the tension comes, or maybe it's better to say, how do you, like, combat the fear?
Yeah.
Because I do think that is the root of this for most people is fear.
Yep.
How do you combat the fear of, if I really give some of this to God, what happens to me and my family, you know?
Yeah. And I really hate to be, I don't want to be flippant about this because I understand, I understand that, like, I am coming from a place of privilege where, like, I live in a house that I own, and, like, I live on Cape Cod, and, like, I eat plenty of food, definitely too much food, you know, so, like, I never want to come across glib, like, oh, just don't worry about it. Like, I understand, you know, there's real consequences here.
Of course.
And even in my scariest money moments where I felt like, oh my gosh, this is so scary and I don't know what we're going to do, I recognize that my scary moments probably look like a joke to a lot of other people. Yeah. So, you know, with all of that being said, I think the principles remain true regardless of, like, individually how you know, particularly scary your situation is. But I really have come to a place where God has just shown, like, truly, and God says, like, test me in this. And he doesn't usually say that in scripture, but when he's talking about giving, he does. He says, test me in this. And so in those early days when we were, you know, just sort of testing out, like, and not testing, and, you know, I know Josh spoke to this, but not in, like, a seed money, like, oh, you know, give $10, God's going to give you $1 million. Not like that, but saying, okay, God, you said that if I trusted you, you'd take care of me. Yeah. And I guess, and I'm just hoping that you will. Yeah. And he did. And seeing the little fruits of that, I really got to a place where I was afraid, sounds like the wrong word, but I am more afraid of missing out on the blessings that God has for me on the other side of my obedience and my generosity than I am of what I'm gonna lose if I don't hold on to everything. Unquote, I look at my life and the things that, and we didn't win the lottery and we don't live in a mega mansion. That's not the point. But I would still, we live a privileged existence. Like, I have gotten to see things and do things and experience things that I would never have in my wildest dreams. Yeah. I couldn't have paid for them if I wanted to. And I'm not saying, oh, all of this happened because, like, we gave a certain amount, but I am saying that, you know what? God asked for us to give sacrificially, and we did. And I've never felt poorer for it. Yeah. Like, I've never left that moment feeling like, oh, I'm poor. Yeah. Yes. I don't feel that I've lost on that equation. And just a quick note on that, and you can cut this if it's weird, but I used to, a lot of that for, you know, the early years of Harbor especially, a lot of that story for us looked like provision coming from other people. Yeah. And people stepping up and doing things for us that, like, we did not deserve, and I don't even know how to repay. Yeah. And for a long time, there was a weird part of me that sort of felt like that didn't count, like that I almost had to leave that part out. Like, oh, okay, I trusted God and we gave, but, you know, this person over here gave us a check, happened, or like, or if, you know, my parents had, like, if all of this stuff, and it took me a long time to realize, like, no, that was part of it. Like, God used other people in my life, and in the process taught me, like, hey, it's not all about you, you know, making it all on your own. Now go and do likewise for others. Like, you live in community, you exist in community, and he was trying to reinforce that idea. So there's so many lessons about life and about community and about the function of the church and the function of family that I've learned in that process of being generous, that, like, it's so much bigger than money that it's terrifying to me to think that I could have missed out on all of that learning and growth just if I had just been like, no,
I want this money.
I want to just hold on to this.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I mean, I will say, like, I've personally benefited from that from you and Josh, like, many times, genuinely, much to my chagrin. Like, And it's actually, that's a piece of it I even wanted to talk to you about is like, you are some of the people in my life that I am that person to many others, and I hate it from you. But like, I don't think I've paid for a meal in you and Josh's presence in like 15 years. And it's not because I can't afford to buy a meal, you know, and that's just how you guys are. And I've had to just deal with it. And I am that person to many other people because you are that way to me, you know, like, it allows us to be that way to others. But there is a piece of being able to accept generosity from others that is so deeply humbling, like to the point that I am almost incapable of it about half the time, maybe more. And I know you've experienced that piece of it. Will you just speak to that a little bit, to like how God uses other people's generosity to show us some other things?
So, you know, grace, I'm a big, like, grace begets grace. So like, you know, we love because he first loved us. Like, you know, that's in the Bible. Like there's this idea, like the way that we experience God's love and are obedient to him allows us to then experience the love of other people and to give love to other people. And I think there's a lot of people who are really tight-fisted with their time, talent, treasure, testimony, you know, who are tight-fisted with everything they have, and then wonder why it's so hard for them to accept generosity. And it's like, well, yeah, you've closed that door. Like that door is it's a two-way street. Like it's a two-way traffic pattern through that opening, but you've closed that off. And yeah, that means that nothing will be taken from you, but it also means you can't receive anything either. And I think that when we hold, like, kind of like that ownership piece that we were talking about, when we like have such a tight grip and we go, well, everything I have is mine, and I'm you know, managing all of this, and like maybe if I deem it a worthy enough cause, like you can have a little bit of or you know, or a lot of it, but I have to make sure that this passes my sniff test and this is up to my standards and all of this stuff. Well, then what you assume is that everyone's looking at you that same, like, the way that you give is the way that you experience when people give to you. And so I'm worried about their judgment, and I'm worried about all of these things, where when I give freely and when I give without judgment and I give without expectation, when people give to me, I can then assume that they're giving to me in love and without judgment or expectation.
It can just be grateful.
Exactly. You know, Jesus says that the same standard, you know, you use to judge others, you yourself will be judged. And I think about that a lot. I may have even said it on the podcast last time, because I think I say it every time I'm anywhere. But I do. I think a lot. We live under the law that we live under, like, and we kind of get to choose. Am I actually going to live under the law under like Christ's grace and mercy and generosity? Or am I going to live under the law of my own self-sufficiency? And like, it's dark in there. It's not fun.
That actually takes me to another place that's pretty different, but I wanted to go. Let's go. So one of the points in the message this weekend was that worship requires sacrifice. Right. There's actually a great passage that I read recently in First Kings, Second Kings. I don't know.
That sounds right.
Nope, actually not at all. First or Second Samuel.
That sounds wrong.
It was David. It was First or Second Samuel. David, who is the king at the time, but on the run, or the future king. I don't remember where it falls in his timeline. Point is,
he's in there.
He's on the run. He will be the king. He has been anointed by God. Like there's no doubt that he's in charge. And he's like out on the run, and he wants to sacrifice to God, and he comes to this guy's property. And he tells the guy, he's like, hey, I want to buy some of your stuff to sacrifice it to God. And the guy's like, you're the king. You just take it. Like, you don't have to buy this from me. And David says, I will not make a sacrifice to the Lord that doesn't cost me something. My question is, why? Why does worship require sacrifice? Like, whether you want to answer that biblically, personally, a combination of the two, but like, why can't I just tell God I love him, and why isn't that enough? You know?
So a passage that weirdly, like, Josh has quoted several times is the passage from Revelation where it talks about, you know, the end times and the defeat of Satan and all this stuff. And it says, you know, and he was defeated by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony, for they did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. And I was reading it and I thought, it brought me back to when Jesus says, you know, whoever lays down their life will find it, or, you know, you need to take up your cross and follow me. And that imagery is just over and over, this idea that we're dying to ourselves. And I think it's sort of funny that as Christians, a lot of times we have people who are like, oh, I'm not afraid of death. You know, I would never renounce Jesus. I know I'm going to heaven. And it's like, but you're afraid to open your wallet.
Yeah.
Like, I think what it is about cost is it's that recognition of I'm giving up something because I recognize that it's all yours. Like, it's that surrender of control. And I think for us, one of the ways that we experience that most profoundly, that surrender of control, is when it costs us something,
right?
Whether that is money or time or, you know, whatever, or, you know, in some cases, like, you know, your reputation or your social status or whatever, to kind of like stand up and do things the correct way. But I think that's when the rubber meets the road. That's when talk becomes action. And that's when it really separates. Okay, do you just like talking about Jesus? Do you just like kind of like talking like church stuff and like you like, or are you willing to let this change your life?
Yeah.
Are you willing to let this change your standard of living? Are you willing to reallocate things that you thought you were going to use a certain way and have it go a completely different way?
Right. Out of and it's trust, right? Is what it comes down to. Do you actually believe that God's way is the better way?
How can I worship a God that I won't surrender to? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's not.
And there can't be surrender without surrender is the yielding of control.
Yeah, that's so good. And I actually today heard, I won't remember the exact words, but we talk a lot on this podcast at Harbor.Church, I think in all Christian circles, because we're human beings and we have this drive. You can't earn God's grace, right? You cannot earn his love. He loves you. His grace is free. But I think we sometimes go so hard in that direction that we then think that a right relationship with God shouldn't require any effort.
Right.
And the difference that I heard it laid out, I think D.A. Carson came up with this idea. I don't know. I'll fact check myself later and then I'll tell you next week. I think it's him. But it's basically the idea that grace-driven effort is a beautiful thing, and it's a response to who God is, to the love that he's poured out on you already. When we're talking about giving, to the finances he's poured out on you already. This is a response, and that's where we get it wrong. Yeah, you're responding to the grace that he's already poured out. You're not trying to earn his grace with your effort. Yes, and that changes everything. Yes. Just the slight order of those things. If I'm giving money to God so that he will love me, and I'm putting in my effort, if I'm getting my time to him so that he'll love me, I'm getting it wrong, and I'm going to hurt myself and others, and I will not have a relationship with God. Yeah. But if I'm responding to who God is through my effort and through my money and through my time, then it's a beautiful thing, and I can find joy in it. Right. You know? Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I had a question there. It's just I heard it today, and it felt worth sharing. That was really good. I mean, we've talked about it before, but Josh has given the illustration of like it actually literally happened a couple weeks ago. My kids, I got them Dippin' Dots, ice cream of the future. Yeah, incredible. And one of they had different flavors, and one turned to the other one and was like, "Hey, can I have some of your Dippin' Dots?" And the one was like, "No, like you have your own." And I literally, and in that moment I was like, Dippin' Dots, everybody's. And they handed them back to me, and I just sat there and I had a couple bites, and they kind of just looked at me, and I was like, whose Dippin' Dots are these? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, who bought the Dippin' Dots? And they're like, you did. I'm like, so these are my Dippin' Dots. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, so to recap, what right do either one of you have to deny the
other one any Dippin' Dot?
Yes,
like, you know what? I decided these are mine, and no one gets any.
No, you get nothing. I like it. Yeah.
And I handed them back, and then it was like, and suddenly it's like, oh, you can have the last bite of my Dippin'. I was like, oh, you can have this.
So generous.
But it was right. Yeah. We are the recipients of all of this unmerited grace and favor. Like, what insanity to then be like, no, you don't deserve it. Right. It's like, well, I don't deserve it.
Yeah, I did nothing to earn this in the first place. Yeah.
I had no Dippin' Dots at the start of this day. Yes. And if I give them all to you, I'll still have none.
No Dippin' Dots,
but I know that God's called me to be generous. So I started with 0, and I may end with 0. And in the middle, all I really get to decide is whether or not I'm obedient. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
And whether I let it like control me.
Right.
You know, that's part of it too, is I'm
Right.
just putting myself in chains. The more I care about
Yes.
these things, the more miserable my life is.
Yep.
I've seen that firsthand
Yeah.
in my own heart. Like the depth of stress and fear
Yes.
that comes with putting money in the place of God is
Yeah.
miserable. Whether you
Yeah.
have a lot or you have very little. Like it's
Yeah.
just miserable. I did promise you that you could just have a free play, because I know that you probably have a rabbit hole
This is the best
you've
ever.
been going down. I don't know. Just like, what do you want to talk about? It
That's such a great question.
doesn't even have to be giving related, though it can be.
You know, I think I've selected my rabbit hole of
Perfect.
choice. Because it was one of the points that Josh made, and it was interesting because obviously, so my husband is the pastor of this church.
I'm the owner of this house. Sorry, I'm on the internet too much.
Every once in a while when I'm out in public, people are like, "Oh, you and your husband own Harbor.Church." I was like, "Oh, that bums me. I hate that."
That's yucko.
I mean, legally, no, and also
spiritually,
no.
Yeah.
But one of the points that he touched on was, you know, people's resistance to giving to the church. And it's so funny. Like I hear that and I can understand it. And if I'm honest, like there's been times in my life where I kind of feel that way. I'm like, I don't really know.
Yeah, what are they doing with this?
And I was really thinking about it, and I loved what he said yesterday, where he was kind of like, you know, hey, like if you can't trust the church that you belong to, like with your money, what are you doing there?
Yeah, you should believe.
Like, frankly, like,
Truly.
what do you, if you think things are so nefarious and insidious behind the scenes that like you can't, then like you should get out.
Yeah.
Or like do something about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also, and I think that's 100% true. I also think that it speaks a little bit to like our fundamental misunderstanding of what the church is. Like because the church is, by its nature, the church is not like an organization that's run by a pastor and like, oh, this is, you know, the business that Josh started, and this is a church is a called out assembly of believers who have like come together for a common purpose. And in some cases that body of believers is like, hey, like let's give these staff members some like jurisdiction over the budget, you know, and let them make some decisions, and hey, let's have a building, and all of that happens. But at the root, like it's a body of believers who have like, you know, purposed together for a common mission. So to say like, oh, well, I'm part of the church, I'm not giving money to the church, would be the equivalent of saying like, well, I'm part of my family, but I'm not giving money to my family. It's like, I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, that feels
like, and it's not even about like, oh, the church needs your money. It isn't, but it is about like, I think you might have a backwards understanding of like what your place in the church is.
Yeah.
Like what this,
are you in it or not?
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're the church. Like it's you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The church isn't this like, like this high up thing on a pedestal that like, you funnel things up to. It's like, this is a community that you are a part of. And you've all said, hey, we're going to pool our resources.
We literally are buying into this mission.
To do some things. Which, by the way, is also why I think that it's part of one of the things that, you know, when Harbor.Church started, it was like, okay, well, hey, we're going to make sure then that the church itself and its finances has an outward focus as well. So, you know, that like the church takes, you know, a percentage off the top and says this leaves the church, like this is out in the community, this goes around the
Global
world,
missions,
like this isn't staying here, so that it doesn't become self-serving. But yeah, like I just think that sometimes people kind of get caught in that, and it's like, well, no, like you're the church.
It's you. Yeah.
It's you.
Well, and understandably, like I grew up in the Catholic Church, and that's just not at all. I don't really know how all of that works. I still don't. I know that a plate was passed, and like if you had some cash in your pocket, you tossed it in, and like that was the most that I was ever aware of it. Yeah. And I think in some way like that maybe fed up to the Vatican, truly. You know,
I've been, they did some interesting things with it, I can tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. But like there is a conglomerate there. Like there is this big head organization. So I do think, especially in our context, a lot of people are coming at it from that lens of like having never really been a part of a church that is a body of believers on mission together without anyone from the outside telling them what to do other than the Lord, you know, like, and that's just who's in charge here. That's the goal, is we're biblically based, going off of what God says, doing our best to discern in between. and giving the people a vote along the way. If you're a member, like, you decide
exactly, and done correctly. Like, if you're saying, okay, hey, when I'm giving to God, I'm giving to the local church. Like, if the local church is operating in a healthy way, there's no charitable organization you are ever going to have the level of influence in that you have in your local church. Like, people are like, well, I want to know where my dollars are going. I'm like, yeah, well, you're not going to get that at Heifer International. Like, I can tell you that much.
Did you say Heifer International?
I did.
Is that cows?
That's cows. That's a real thing. And they do good work. It is,
I'm sure they do. Okay.
It is exceptionally difficult to get off of their mailing list, just if that matters to you.
Noted. Okay.
No slander.
We are not sponsored by Heifer
No, we're
International,
not. And if we ever were maybe going to, it's not going to happen now. But yeah, like, if done correctly, like, this actually isn't about like, oh, the church is controlling you. This is actually about, no, you're part of a local assembly of believers where you have influence and say and community, and you can have a real impact over like how that. I mean, I know for a fact, like, Harbor gives to organizations that were started by members of, like, charitable organizations that are started by members of Harbor.Church that we only know about because you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so that's also interesting to me as well. Like, sometimes there's a sense of like, well, I want to know where it's going. It's like, well, the best shot you're ever going to have of that is
at your local church. Yeah, that's true. That's so good. All right, final question, and then you can be on your way if you want. You can stay and hang out.
Sick.
If I'm listening and I don't know where to begin, because it is, I think it's a new concept for a lot of people. It was for me.
For sure.
And the concept of 10% can feel terrifying, and I do get that. Like, that's a big chunk. It feels like a big chunk.
Yep.
Where would you start? What's a practical step that you could take?
I would say start intentionally and start regularly. So if truly, and Josh said it, and it sounded like a hyperbole, but I'm saying it literally. If 10% sounds terrifying, start with 1%, truly. Yeah. And say, okay, hey, I'm going to give every single, whether there's a huge car, disaster, or whether we, get a huge windfall, like, I'm going to always give that 1%.
Yeah.
And see what happens. And maybe you say, okay, well, hey, if we don't die after 6 months, like, let's try 2. Let's try, and do it that way. And hey, I don't know, maybe you do 1, and you're like, that's all I feel the Lord's calling me to give. That's between you and God. Like, that's not really my business.
Sure.
But I would say, just from experience, and I mean it truly, there are some really cool things on the other side, and I'm not talking about, like, randomly finding a diamond mine or like, but there are really cool things on the other side of the moment when you say, okay, God, I'm going to intentionally choose to lower my standard of living in order to make margin to give off of the top of what I have, and let you have kind of the first grab at my paycheck. Yeah. There's a real cool shift that happens when you do that.
Yeah, that's good.
So I would say don't be afraid to start small, but do something that's a little bit scary, or pick one thing. And I know Josh has said that look at something in your budget line, whether that's Dunkin' Donuts, I don't care. Yeah. And say, whatever the amount of money is I spend on that thing, I'm going to give that amount of money. And just start there. And just say, okay, hey, I spend $30 a month on Dunkin'. That now goes to the church. And if I could afford that, cool, now I get that and Dunkin', and if I can't afford both, then I'm without it. But I knew I could afford one of those things. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
And then see what happens. That's a real sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I know, and I believe, and I've experienced, and I've seen that God honors that, and God blesses that in ways that I would be so sad to have missed out on the things that God's shown me over, like, I don't know, a slightly nicer car.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good.
Like,
and lowering your standard of life, as you said, it is increasing your standard of faith.
Yeah.
That's the choice that's before us, Yeah. Doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
But it is simple.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a joy.
We'll get an official 3-peat on the books, just you, in the near future.
So pumped.
All right. We'll catch you guys next week.
All right.